Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day is going very well so far. The NFL Week 13 is officially here, and with that comes another edition of Monday Night Football. Got a pretty solid matchup here between the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos, and I have some picks to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. We have a ton of great content here on the channel, and the best part is every pick we hand out between myself, Ev, and Trey on this channel, every single pick is 100% free. So guys, do yourself a favor, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Like I said, tons of great videos, tons of great content each and every day here at Guy Boston Sports. You guys are probably a little bit confused and wondering why I'm here for a Monday Night Football picks video and not Ev. The confusion is completely understandable. Ev was a little bit busy this week. He asked me if I can go ahead and fill in for this week's Monday Night Football picks video, which I gladly accepted. Shout out to Ev. The man works hard. He works hard every single day. He deserves a little bit of a break every now and again too. But I promise you guys, I will handle this video and I will handle today's picks with the most tender love and care, just like Ev does every single week. And just like Ev normally does on Mondays, I'm hoping to give you guys a healthy amount of winning plays. And I gotta be honest, guys, I have some picks with some really great value, and I love the matchup in this Monday Night Football game. And I'm not gonna waste too much time here, kind of pussyfooting around, so to speak. Maybe that wasn't the best way to go about saying that, but I'm not going to waste too much time here trying to build anticipation for who I'm riding with. I love the Denver Broncos in this spot. They're favored by 5.5 points in this matchup. They're at home against Cleveland. To be totally honest, I think the line should be much, much higher, closer to like 7.5 or 8. The market is clearly overvaluing that Browns win last week against the Steelers on Thursday Night Football, and understandably so. When you beat a team like Pittsburgh, and also the Browns a few weeks before that had beaten the Baltimore Ravens, when you beat teams like that, clearly people are going to value you more. But the reason I say overvalue is that I still don't think the Cleveland Browns are that good of a team. Obviously, they're 3-8 overall. Their record kind of reflects that. And although they certainly have looked better at times since moving on from Deshaun Watson, obviously he got hurt. They went over to Jameis Winston now. In the 4 games with Jameis, they have 2 wins and 2 losses, but those 2 wins were against Baltimore and Pittsburgh, some pretty impressive wins. Despite that, I still don't think, even with Jameis Winston, even with who I think is an upgrade at quarterback over Deshaun Watson, I still don't think this Browns team is all that great. Some of it's their fault, some of it's not their fault. This offensive line is still pretty banged up. And although defensively the Browns still have some solid playmakers, specifically Myles Garrett, I just don't think this Browns defense is what it was a year ago. Due to that overvaluation, we are getting the Broncos at a really phenomenal number. This minus 5.5 line is absolute money. The Denver Broncos have been one of the hottest teams in the NFL and one of the most surprising stories of this NFL season. And we're now far enough into this year where we know the Broncos they're not a fluke. They're legit a really solid team. They're a legit playoff contender in the AFC. Now, do I think they're going to make any kind of a deep run and maybe go to a Super Bowl? Absolutely not. But this team, in the first year of what is a real true rebuild, the second year under Sean Payton, the Broncos have been really impressive. This defense is one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL this year. And their offense, which had a slow start, is really starting to come together. And Bo Nix looks really, really impressive. Now you understand why people were so excited and so giddy when the Broncos hired Sean Payton. Sean Payton is a genius when it comes to coaching and roster construction. The guy took what looked like one of the bleakest situations going into the offseason with the whole Russell Wilson stuff and the state of the roster. He took one of the bleakest situations and turned it into one of the most interesting stories and one of the most promising young teams. And with the defense being as good as it's been and with the offense getting better and better each week, I just don't see how Cleveland A, either wins this game, or B, keeps this within a touchdown. We're going to go ahead and jump into the outlier screen, guys, to go ahead and show you guys some numbers, some statistics to kind of back up what I'm telling you. Now, for starters, again, we're taking the Broncos at minus 5.5. We're getting it for minus 115 on FanDuel at the time of recording. Again, try to hop in this line as soon as you can. I think I would bet it even at minus 6, but the line could move closer and closer to kickoff depending on where the market bets. But right now, minus 5.5 or minus 115 is really strong value. The Broncos have been an absolute cover darling this season, an 80% hit rate against the spread overall this season. We're looking specifically at the line of minus 5.5, which is what we're taking, obviously, in this matchup. You see a 60% hit rate on the year, over the last 5 games, actually. Rewind that. Apologies on the last 5 games tab, but honestly, when you go look at the season total, it's not all that different. A 75% hit rate against the spread overall this year, 80% over the last 5 games. 75% hit rate, they're still a covered darling. What I said before still rings true. The line of minus 5.5 is a 50% hit rate over the season thus far. To narrow it in a little bit more, though, 4 of the last 6 games for Denver, they have covered this spread of minus 5.5. And over that 6-game span, they've covered the spread overall in 5 of those 6 games. The only game they fared to cover the spread was back on November 3rd. They had that awful loss to Baltimore. But as the weeks have gone on, we're learning that Ravens loss was kind of an aberration, kind of an outlier. Nice little plug there. But, since then, they played the Chiefs, where they should have won that game. It was really close. They crushed Atlanta. They crushed the Raiders, which I get that it's not super impressive. But it's good to see the Broncos aren't just winning, but they're able to blow their opponents out. It's kind of a sign of a good team. You obviously, you can go ahead and win. But the saying, great teams win, good teams win, but great teams cover. And the Broncos have absolutely been covering late. The Cleveland Browns, on the flip side, a 40% hit rate against the spread overall this year, and just a 45% hit rate at this line of +5.5. Narrowing it down to just the Jameis Winston run, which is the last 4 weeks, you see again 2-2. The Steelers game and the Ravens game they covered. The Saints game and the Chargers game, not so much. And looking at the right side of the screen here, guys, you're going to understand why I love the Broncos so much. Let's just get the first things first out of the way. The reason why this matchup is so juicy for Denver is this one right here. The Broncos defense versus the Browns offense. Now, a little disclaimer. The Browns data here obviously takes in the Deshaun Watson stuff into consideration also. That's where the majority of this data comes from. So do take that with a grain of salt, the fact that these numbers include the Deshaun Watson stuff. This is not just over the last few games. This is not under the Jameis Winston run. This is everything combined for the year for Denver. Although there has been some offensive improvement over the last couple of weeks, overall, still the Broncos have the 31st scoring offense in the NFL, matching up with the second best scoring defense in the NFL. Look at Denver's numbers here. I'll go ahead and scroll down all their numbers across the board. They are top 10 in almost every key category in this league. It's unbelievable. Second in scoring, first in red zone efficiency. They're tied for 6th in first downs, 8th in passing yards allowed per game, 6th in rushing yards allowed per game, tied for 1st in yards per play. This pass rush is insane. 1st in sacks, 2nd in QB hits, tied for 6th in QB hurries, and tied for 5th in QB tackles for loss, I should say. The only two areas where they're not top 10 is in third down conversion rate, 13th in the NFL, and turnovers forced, which they're tied for 14th, which is still about average / top half of the league. Whatever way you want to tackle it, the Broncos defense might be the best, but definitely one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL right now. They're on an incredible run here. And the Browns offense, like I said, where the Browns are like top 10 in every category. The Broncos are top 10 in every defensive category. The Browns are bottom 10. Getting a little tongue twisted there, guys. Let me go ahead and make it a little simple for you. Where the Broncos are top 10 in every defensive category, the Browns are bottom 10 in every offensive category. So really good matchup here. You see the difference there. The Broncos clearly have the advantage here. And on the flip side, the Browns defense, although it's not the worst in the NFL, it's certainly not good. 22nd in scoring, 16th in passing yards allowed, 23rd in rushing yards allowed. Again, not very good in any category. The Broncos offense, they don't really rank very high, but again, they're 17th in scoring, 23rd in passing, 21st in rushing. But with the defense they have, they don't have to be an elite offense to go and win a game like this. Their defense can absolutely carry the most of the work in this game. So yeah, guys, love the Broncos in this spot. Our first pick in this slate is Broncos -5.5. I think they win this game, and they should dominate the Browns in this one. Jameis Winston makes a lot of mistakes. I could see multiple turnovers happening in this game from him. I just love the Broncos in this spot. And to piggyback off of that, my second pick in today's video, I'm going, instead of taking the overall total, I'm going to focus on a team total here. We're going with the Browns team total under 18.5 points. Now, we're getting this for -125 on DraftKings, and the data is absolutely fantastic in this spot. I obviously just went on my whole little rant there about the Broncos defense against this putrid Browns offense, and you look at the numbers, you understand why the Browns numbers are where they are offensively. This team is covering this under of 18.5 points in 9 out of 11 games this year. That's an 82% hit rate this season, averaging just 16.91 points per game this season. A lot of these unders of 18.5 have cash for the Browns this year. If we narrow it down to the last 5 games, and obviously looking a little bit closer to the last 4 games under the Jameis Winston starts, they are 2-2 on this line under Jameis Winston. They cashed the over 2 times versus the Steelers and versus the Ravens, but versus the Chargers and versus the Saints, which Jameis did start those games, they still cashed the under pretty convincingly too. Just 10 points versus the Chargers and just 14 points versus the Saints. And when you look at the 2 over cashes, it kind of makes sense. The Ravens, although they were a great offense defensively, they have their issues. In the Browns, they absolutely took advantage of those in that game. The Ravens secondary was weak. Jameis Winston was airing it out all over them. That one made sense. The Steelers game, it really just came down to the weather really affected that one. And in that fourth quarter where the snow was just going crazy, the second half, I should say, not just the fourth quarter, when the snow was going crazy, you really weren't running the football. You had to just go ahead and sling it. They were going for 2 almost every time. They were throwing the ball like crazy. I don't know if the Browns score 24 points if that game is played in a normal weather condition. I think the weather definitely helped Cleveland in that spot in terms of winning the game and cashing this team total over. But whatever way you shake it, I love the Browns team total under 18.5 points here. The Broncos defense should absolutely suffocate this offense and force the Browns to make multiple mistakes. This Browns offensive line is putrid. The Browns are 32nd in sacks, 32nd in QB hits, going against the first defense in sacks and the second defense in QB hits. Just not a great matchup by any standard for Cleveland. I think Denver absolutely holds them down to under this point total and crush them in this game. And to close out today's video, guys, I have a couple player props to go ahead and share with you guys. Our first player prop and our third pick overall in today's video, we're going with Jameis Winston here, over half an interception. There's a lot of juice on this line, understandably so, but if you guys are looking for a prop to maybe throw in a parlay, this one's a really good one. The line is right now available for -150 on DraftKings, available on BetMGM, Caesars, Underdog, Bet365, and Prize Picks for varying odds. But again, a lot of juice on this line for Jameis. Now, the data obviously doesn't look great because he hasn't played in many games this season. We have to go ahead and narrow this down to just the few games that he has played this year. Over the last couple games, he got 3 interceptions versus the Chargers and 1 interception last week versus the Steelers. So in his 4 starts, it's a 50% hit rate on this over. He didn't throw an interception versus the Saints, and he didn't throw an interception versus Baltimore. But if you guys know Jameis, you've been watching him for a lot of years, including a couple games this year, you know he is an interception machine, and I do think he's due to throw a pick in this one because it's a really good, once again, like I keep saying, the Broncos defense is a bad matchup for Cleveland here. This pass rush is going to make him uncomfortable. It's going to force him out of the pocket, going to force him to make some untimely throws, some uncomfortable throws. He's going to force some stuff. I think he could throw multiple interceptions, honestly, but he's definitely going to throw at least one. The Broncos are tied for 14th in turnovers forced, forcing 1.2 turnovers per game. And look at the right side of the screen here, guys. The interceptions forced per game for Denver, they are 11th in the NFL, averaging 0.8 interceptions forced per game. So I think he's definitely going to throw a pick here. It's a pretty good one. Again, I know it's a little juice, but if you're looking for a prop to go ahead and throw in your parlays, this is a pretty solid one. All right, guys, next up, and I love this prop here, we have Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos, over 64.5 receiving yards. Is available for -120 on DraftKings. It is available on multiple sports books for varying odds. Now, on the season so far, just a 50% hit rate for Courtland Sutton. 6 out of 12 games he's cashed the over, averaging 62 receiving yards per game this season. However, as you can see with the data there, he got off to a pretty slow start to the year. If we go ahead and narrow down just the last 5 games, when Bo Nix has really gotten going, when he's really started to figure out the NFL, to figure out the rhythm and the speed of the game and whatnot, and you're seeing his numbers go up as to have Courtland Sutton's numbers gone up. See, he's cashed the over in each of his last 5 games at 100% hit rate. He's averaging 93.4 receiving yards over his last 5 games, so some pretty impressive numbers there. And look at the head-to-head data. He did play Cleveland last year on November 26th. Now, obviously, that was back with Russell Wilson, a very different team, very different dynamic. He did have 61 receiving yards in that game, though, against Cleveland last year. So he almost made it, and that was with Russell Wilson and sharing the field with, like, Jerry Jeudy, who's no longer there. Obviously, he's actually now on the Browns. I think Sutton was going to have an absolutely big game here. And again, the last 5 games, he's really been going off. Look at the matchup here. Cleveland overall, they are 18th in receiving yards allowed per game, giving up 232 receiving yards per game to opposing teams. If we narrow that in versus wide receivers, they are one of the worst teams in the NFL, 25th in terms of receiving yards allowed per game to the wide receiver position, giving up 157.2 receiving yards per game. Courtland Sutton is clearly the go-to receiver on this Browns offense. Look at the target share here, a 24.5% target share. He has 95 targets. The next closest is Javonte Williams with 48. And again, narrowing in these last 5 games, he's averaging 9.6 targets per game over his last 5 games, a 75% catch rate. He's averaging about 7.2 receptions per game over his last 5 games, with an average yards per reception of 13 yards. So look at the volume. It's definitely been there for him. I just think this is a really good spot for Courtland Sutton. And piggybacking off of that, our final pick in today's video, we have an anytime touchdown player prop here. We're going with Courtland Sutton here. Anytime touchdown. We're getting this one for +150 on FanDuel. It is also available on multiple sports books for varying odds, but it looks like FanDuel is the general sports book that has it for +150 too. Pretty good value here. On the season thus far, just a 33% hit rate for Courtland Sutton. 4 out of 12 games he's cashed the over, averaging 0.42 touchdowns per game. He actually cashes over at a 63% hit rate last season. 10 out of 16 games he cashed the over last year. But again, narrowing down to the last 5 games, he's cashed the over in 2 of his last 5 games, including the last time we saw him versus the Raiders. He had 2 receiving touchdowns in that game. Looking at the Raiders' opponent rank there, they were 26th in the NFL in touchdowns allowed to opposing wide receivers. This week, the Browns defense is 28th in the NFL in touchdowns allowed to opposing wide receivers, gave up 1.4 touchdowns per game. So a pretty similar matchup to what we saw last week versus the Raiders. He had 2 touchdowns last week. I think he should be able to get at least 1 touchdown this week. It's a Browns defense that's giving up a healthy amount of touchdowns to opposing wideouts. Like we already talked about, the 24.5% target share for Courtland Sutton, but even the red zone, it still remains the same. Actually, a bigger slice of the pie there. You see a 36.2% target share for Courtland Sutton, in the red zone. 17 targets. The next closest guy, Lil Jordan Humphrey, with 5 targets. For plus 150, it's really great value. And you guys, if you watch my Sunday Night Football picks video, I love to do these touchdown giveaways. I'm going to go ahead and do that on this video as well to kind of stick with the tradition that I typically do on my single game picks videos. So all you have to do is very simple. Comment Sutton or Cortland Sutton. Just comment his name down below. And if this touchdown props hits, one lucky comment will win a free $25 Amazon gift card. I know that's not typically what Ev does on Monday Night Football picks, but it is what I do on Sunday Night Football picks. So I figured I'll carry the tradition into this video here. So all you're going to do is comment Sutton or Cortland Sutton or Cortland, whatever. Just comment some version of his name down below. And if this hits, one lucky commenter will win a free $25 Amazon gift card. All right, guys, those are all 5 picks for this Monday Night Football game between the Browns and the Broncos. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, guys. One more time, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Ev will be back here next week for next week's Monday Night Football game. I want to thank you guys for tuning into today's video. I hope you guys were entertained. I hope you guys found some of the data and the insight that provided useful for this game. I hope you guys go ahead and ride. And if you don't, if you tail or you fade, go ahead and comment down below if you do that. But thank you guys for watching me. And if you want to watch any more of my videos, I am available. I do Sunday Night Football picks. I do weekly NFL picks. I do daily NBA player props. I do a bunch of videos here on the channel. So make sure to go ahead and subscribe and check those out. Until next time, guys, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy this Monday Night Football showdown.